Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast hosted by Concept 3D. If you like our content, please follow and subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, and Google. My name is Shiro Hattori, and I will be your host today. And we'll be covering a topic on launching a central marketing podcast and what it means to be a senior marketing leader. For the conversation, I'm really excited to have Nate Jorgensen joining us today. He is the Senior Director of Marketing at Miami University, which is in Oxford, Ohio. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Shiro. Great to be here.
It's great to have you, and it's awesome to have another person from Miami University joining us today. Shout out to Courtney O'Banion or Courtney Russell. She's joined me on an episode probably over a year ago to talk about social media marketing. So it's awesome to always circle back on the same institution and same team. So
Courtney's the best. Courtney answers all the important questions for me that then I go and answer and take credit for.
That's great. Okay. I do ask a icebreaker to all my guests, Nate, which is please tell me what you love about higher ed.
What I love about higher ed is that it can make such a big difference for a person. And I know that there have been ebbs and flows to the public perception of higher ed, and that's very much the case right now. Higher ed can change the trajectory of an entire family tree. I worked previously in a college of engineering, and that world in particular, where we saw students coming in from historically excluded backgrounds, getting an engineering degree, going on to work at a high-powered place like GE or an automotive manufacturer, and that changes everything. I would imagine, I don't know, I haven't experienced it, but that is a fork in the road that sends them on an upward trajectory. And if I can help in any way someone find that right fit, that they they're comfortable at the school, and that they get the most out of it as they can. Not everyone can go to MIT. I certainly can't. But can I find the right one that I can get the most out of to make those things happen? That's what I love about it.
That's awesome. And I love the mission here. I know we'll talk more about your mission-driven component here in a bit, but can you tell me more about your current role and the things that you're responsible for today at Miami?
Yes. So I'm the Senior Director of Marketing. I've been in this role for about 6 months. Previously, for 2 years, I was the Senior Director of Academic Marketing. In that role, I worked as more of a liaison with the colleges as we try to move everybody into a central marketing team. There's a very difficult process, if you could imagine. So that was great experience, but now what I'm doing is super fun, super exciting. Running, setting up, strategizing all of our campaigns. I'm primarily on the brand side, not tied directly to did someone fill out a request for information or did someone end up applying who clicked on an ad, but can we get our advertising, our marketing out there in a way that grows the Miami University brand, because it's not known well enough. People who don't know about it would be at the very least intrigued by it if they knew what it was. I would have been as a high school student. And so that is my job. And right now we are putting together and trying to launch our campaigns for FY25, which should have started a month ago. To give you a bit of how it's going right now, I'm a month behind. And really kind of just learning the steps in this role for how to get all of that accomplished. And obviously, stumbling a bit along the way, I give myself grace and everyone around me grace with that happening. There are a lot of changes at the university and a lot of new people. And but going forward, I'm just so excited for what we can do, the stories that we can tell that really show that brand of undergraduate focused education, a public university that seems like a private, that you get undergraduate attention that you don't necessarily get at a huge school, yet you have the resources to do so many of the big school things.
I'm having like an episode of deja vu right now, because the episode I posted today, which was 99, was with Catherine Tolson, and she's from Texas A&M, and she actually did exactly what you did, more on a data capacity. But at Texas A&M, she helped bring data and analytics from all the different schools and colleges of within their system, and trying to find a common goal at each of their, separate school and college websites, and trying to bring them all together, and being like sort of an internal consultant to make sure like the data was clean. We were trying to measure the right things. And then she now moved into a brand strategist role like a week ago, which is, it's just, I don't know. I was just having a crazy case of deja vu.
Well, and that is interesting too. It's always interesting to go from that more of a specialist, like this is the thing that I do and I know that I can do it, and then into a senior director where what I didn't mention is that I oversee, I'm giving quotes, I try to help the teams of the web team, everything that works on the website, social media, and the creative team. And those are very involved things in themselves. And so it really is a situation where you're learning a lot on the fly, and just trying to do your best to not hold those people who already know what they're doing in those roles, to hold them up. I just really try to make myself available and personable to people in a way that they can approach me anytime, and I'm going to help them solve their problem. I'm not going to do anything in a negative way unless it were something just way out of control.
No, that's great. Oh, I love to dig a little bit deeper on how you are working with those separate three teams later. But um, going back to our intro call again, I love this. You set this tone for the story of like why you do the job you do today. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it all starts with my college journey as a 17 and 18-year-old. I was a varsity athlete, period, when I was 17 and 18 years old. That's the only thing I identified as. So when that ended appropriately, there was no one interested in me playing outside of the high school ranks. I had a crisis of who am I and what do I do? And I think because of that mindset and that insecurity and just the not knowing, I picked the biggest school, the school with the best name recognition that I got into, and that was just huge and had a bunch of offerings there. That's good in a lot of ways. I am happy with that in a lot of ways. I went to Michigan State University, and they have a lot to offer. They are a good school. In the end, I can pretty confidently say that was not the right school for me. If I would have given it the attention that I should have given it, had I not been, oh, poor me, I'm not getting my ankles taped anymore for a basketball game that 50 people are watching, um, I would have gone on every college tour. I was in the middle of Michigan, just thinking about visiting Northern Michigan University up in the UP. I didn't do that. I didn't visit Michigan Tech up in the UP. I didn't visit Central Michigan. And I should have visited beyond there. I think if I would have traveled down and seen Miami and felt comfortable that I could survive academically, which students can if they work hard, I would have had this menu in front of me that I could have experienced better. And I didn't do that. I didn't even go on a visit. I had been at Michigan State a bunch of times for sports camps and stuff like that, because of course I'm a varsity athlete. That's what I am. And didn't go on a tour, sent in my application, got accepted and signed it and said, see you in August. And then even then I stayed. I worked a job. I worked as a student manager for the football team while I was there. And that was a really rough job in a lot of ways. It was a good experience, but that's obviously a very rough environment, and there are a lot of positives to draw from that. I worked for Nick Saban for 2 years.
Wow.
For those of you who know sports, and I'm really appreciative of that experience. Yet, knowing what I know now, if I were here, 44-year-old Nate with a gray beard talking to 18-year-old Nate, I would say, after your first year where you experience that, you should be done with that. And you should find things that interest you in other ways. And maybe that's a different school. Maybe you should open up your mind a little bit to what that should be. And so I just went with the flow. And sorry to go on for so long, but I just if I wasn't studying, I was playing PlayStation back when NCAA football was first the thing to do, and it's coming out again now. And so there was just so many wasted opportunities, and it's all on me. Michigan State, they've been in the news for different reasons that are problematic, that I'm not proud of my alma mater for, and that's a bit more complicating to my mindset about there. But that's the time when you need to start taking control of your life as a human being. It's like your first adult decision. And for the most part, within limitations and different circumstances, you're deciding what that is. And I did a poor job of that. And I want to help the next Nate, and especially the next Nate or Sarah who doesn't have the many privileges that I have. My parents went to college. I had a relative who paid for my college, as ridiculous as that is. I didn't appreciate that at all. I was like, okay, where's the check? Is everything okay? Please don't bother me with it. I was insane. and so I needed a perspective, and I hope that students find a way to get that perspective now, that in a way that I didn't.
And working in marketing, part of our roles, whether you're on the vendor space like I am, or you're working in internally in an institution or college, like that is part of your job, is to get your brand out there, tell prospective students more about what your school represents and what makes you unique. And that's what you do now, right? Like you're helping to create that message and trying to reach out to students so that the Nate who is taking the easy route or not considering other options may see some other colors of light.
Absolutely. How can I disrupt that
Yep.
that Nate and get them thinking something? Miami is such an interesting school, and I love it. And it has a reputation as a very established traditional school, and it is in some ways. But it has made so many strides over the last couple years or decades to really open up, and really they had the tight campus community. We are 30 miles from anywhere, and I say that in a good way. It's outside of Cincinnati. But it takes some doing to get here. My commute here in the morning from the more populated area is 45 minutes every day with turns and twists and cornfields. There's something interesting in that. And there's something that happens when you're in a quiet environment where you feel supported by the students around you who are motivated by the same things. I think you tend to find a more serious student here than other schools in our category across different measurements, and that matters as well. Are you working on that project with a student who's phoning it in, or are you working on a project with a student who is just raring to go and can't wait to see what the results of this data turn out? We have so many programs like that, and one in particular that I'll just show as an example is the undergraduate research program. I'm going to say this, and I'll probably get in trouble for it, but I think it illustrates the point. Almost any undergraduate student at Miami can get experience in undergraduate education, and I think that's a remarkable thing. I've worked at schools, very good schools, very inclusive schools that have touted the ability to do undergraduate education. And then kind of what you don't say at the end of that is, you cup your hand and say that's for the top 2% of students that professors will take. Students can find a way if they are interested in something. For the most part, hedging where I need to, you can find a way to be involved. You'll probably possibly find a way to have your name included on a published research piece. That is remarkable. And we have a huge undergraduate research forum that happens every year. That is my favorite event every year. Well, one of my favorites because I love several of them. And students get up and present their research, and I'm just blown away. And it's because of that, like what I said before, the students are passionate about what they're doing. And I'll just say, like our business school in particular, which has a very good reputation, deservedly so, they are very enthusiastic about business and about what they can do to innovate in the business space, whether that's entrepreneurship, accounting, marketing, management, whatever it may be. That's fun to be around, more so than going through a poster session that you would at maybe another student fair, where students are just kind of clinging to their cork board and not stepping out. Our students are stepping out, stopping you, engaging you, telling you their pitch about their research, and trying to get you interested. And I'm just like, yes, like this is what it is. Yes, you're getting it. Like this is going to help you so much. So even if you fail, even if it completely fails, doing that, making that step, I hope that answers that question. But it's just like kind of a whole ecosystem of that.
Yeah. And talking about, something that was student driven and being open to new ideas on campus, like can you tell us more about the Major Insight podcast? I believe that was student driven to start, right?
It was not, but it was very student involved.
Gotcha,
So
that's what it was.
Started several years ago. I'm going to guess, and I'm going to get yelled at for this too because I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm going to say 5 to 7 years ago it started. And it started within our College of Education. And they put together Aaron, who is the marketing director there, and James Loy, who is the absolute genius behind the podcast. Aaron had the idea and James made it happen along with Aaron. And they just started having students interview other students. I think a student actually maybe brought the idea up first of all too. So maybe you're correct. And they just said, go for it. And we want to cut it up. We want to polish it, and we want to put it out there. So what it kind of did originally was explain the major that give me insight into your major. When you say kinesiology, as a 17-year-old, I did not know what kinesiology means.
Right.
I wouldn't expect people to know what kinesiology means. So you have a kinesiology student on and have them talk through the amazing things that are being discovered in kinesiology that are helping millions of people. And making such a difference. And so it grew and evolved from there to then including student experience, including if being in the College of Education, if you were a teacher, talking about your student teaching experience, many times in the heart of Cincinnati, where it is a different environment than some students are used to, and having that rewarding experience of meeting new people and just exposure to different people. And then it still has kind of evolved further to where, yes, there is always that thing about the major. Why did you choose your major? Many of our students are double majors with concentrations, single majors with concentrations and minors. That's one of the things that Miami does very well also. And just hearing their stories about what led them to be interested about that. And usually there's a really interesting story about that.
That's
I
fantastic.
remember one student in engineering at a couple of years ago at a previous institution said, I want to keep autonomous cars evolving. And it was because he had a relative who died in a car accident. How much more of a direct story could you possibly draw than that, and see the motivation for that? And so it's grown and it's become a little bit more fun, which is perfect, and talking about the college experience. And I came in 2.5 years ago, and it was really awkward because most of the things I do are awkward because I'm an awkward person. I came into my interview and I had been studying for it because I really take presenting at an interview seriously. And I had started listening to the Major Insight podcast. I was like, I'm going to get some tidbits from this to be like, hey, like this happened. This is what I know Miami does. And I I basically kind of chastised the entire room for not doing more with the podcast, which is really not a smart thing to do on an interview. Because of other reasons, I was very fortunate to get the job, and then set out very blatantly and clearly to make this podcast bigger, better supported, and just to see where it can go with the right resources. So from that point, when I first came here, they were using an old classroom that was echoey, and it sounded very good. James, that genius, did a great job with sound engineering, but now we're in a soundproof studio. Now we have a complete mixing board, and we're getting cameras to have the video aspect. And we have students who are helping it. We're involving classes in it to where students can do projects that then end up being short segments within the podcast. And just real quickly, the overall goal for it, for us, we want to help prospective college students feel more at ease with their college choice, whatever that college choice ends up being. If a student is in Idaho and ends up deciding to go to UC Santa Cruz, and the reason they decided to do that is because they happened to find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, and they heard something that was interesting, and then they noticed UC Santa Cruz has that program. I'm ecstatic about that. I'll take that, and I will brag about that. We're going to get enough attention from it to if it can spread the way that we would love it to. It's won several awards. It just won another, or is a finalist for another national award, a Reagan Award. And so it is very, very good, and we're just constantly trying to grow it, and it's so much fun. I hope people will check it out.
That's great. I love that you've set a clear objective for the podcast, which is, trying to reach prospective students, giving them a sense of belonging, community, even before they ever set foot on campus. It's fantastic. Looks like you've upgraded the systems too, right? Which definitely is a big deal for it. I'd imagine this is still like a new thing for you, right? You were maybe a year or two into it. I think I would believe that distribution is like pretty new area to podcasting. Like, I think podcasters are still trying to figure this out. Like, what is your strategy in distributing content in order to reach your goal? And how does that play into the student journey?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, and something that we haven't solved yet. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't solved yet, and we've tried several things that I think are great, and it probably just takes the right time to hit at the right time with the right person.
Right.
So I'm going to start by giving a couple really good examples, but they're anecdotal. We have heard from students or prospective students one case where a student was at home folding laundry, a prospective student. The mom of the student ended up hearing an episode of the podcast, came into the laundry room, slammed her phone down on the drying machine, and said, "Listen to this right now. You need to learn from this right now because they're talking exactly about the things that you're worried about." uh, I'm pretty much good if that's the last thing that this podcast does is help that student. And there are several stories of that.
Mm-hmm.
The way that we are trying to distribute it, one that we started out first with is taking those students within majors who are interviewed. Take an anthropology major student.
Mm-hmm.
And when we send out emails to prospective anthropology students, we want that episode featured in some way. Usually, that is a single email saying, "Hi, we know you are an intending anthropology student.
Mm-hmm.
We just happen to publish this podcast that includes this student who's studying anthropology, and they talk a lot about what it's like here. We would love for you to listen to it and just to get the truth about what it is and just to get a feel for it." That's one way that I think it gets right to the person, right to the customer who you want it to get to, who is near the bottom of the funnel and is valuable. And we do that in several other ways as well. We distribute it to students who come on tours, make sure that they're aware of it. We leave like postcards in the bags that they take away from that. You know, some of that is kind of old fashioned, and I'm not apologizing for that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's another thing that we do. We also distribute it on campus. Our upcoming host, choosing a host has been just the most exciting and scary process that I've done here so far. Because when I started here, we had an absolute all-star as a host. His name was Jason Megacy. He lives in Columbus. Last time I knew, he's graduated. I listened to him on the episodes before my interview, and I was like, we can't do better than this. And we need to hire this person immediately. And
Right.
then when I got here, he graduated and left. And then we got someone, Jason's still amazing. This person was even better on top of him in several ways. And now that person is leaving, and James is hiring, bringing in the new student. And they all just offer this different voice. You know, there's kind of a cool and collected and calm interviewing style, and then there's kind of an excited, let's really talk about that and joke about that and make that funny. And each one of those makes it like an era of the podcast, and that's just super fun. And so I would just say that. And then we've just started recently. Oh, I'm sorry. What I was saying with that was that new host came to us because she had found the podcast, and the
Right.
podcast helped her. She was going through a rough time. She listened to an episode of the podcast and said, "My goodness, this is what more people need to hear, because this just helped. This 20 minutes just really helped me feel
Mm-hmm.
more at ease." So she wanted to do more of that, and she ended up making the cut. And so we love for our current students and even current students at other universities to hear it. And what we've just started now is also marketing it in a marketing way. We're
Mm-hmm.
doing some Spotify ads, we're doing some display ads on websites, and that's slow going. I'm not doing a great job of that, and
Right.
trying to find the right thing that works, the right way to target that. So there's several things going on and at different stages with varying degrees of success, which is
What
super
about
fun.
social? Like, I mean, with these post podcast recordings, obviously my audience isn't like on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook for that matter. I post mostly on LinkedIn, but like that's a huge distribution channel for this podcast and the small video clips I get from them. I could imagine that could be pretty good content for your social teams as well.
Yes,
Um,
and I forgot that, and that
oh,
we
okay.
we do that. We are in a process right now. We just hired a new senior director of communications who
Fantastic.
came in and helped what was already happening here, which was a kind of a coming together of the social team, the media team, and programs, for lack of a better term like this. So we're getting ramped up and doing a much better job of, here is a podcast episode that was just created. It touches on this, this, and this. And let's say it's mental health is one of them. It happens to be mental health month this month. Let's have that podcast episode scheduled to be promoted on Instagram, on everything during that month, and build out a
Hmm.
content calendar that way. So that's what we're doing a better job of, and it just kind of took us, kind of just having some fresh ideas and a fresh personality in that way. So that also is super exciting because it's just not something that we've necessarily purposely focused on before.
I appreciate that. No, I love this talk. I could talk about podcasts all day,
I'll
literally.
keep going. I have hours.
No,
So yeah.
yeah. I mean, I love this. I love that you've, just to recap what I heard, I love that you've set a clear strategy, right? You're exciting. You're building a lot of excitement internally too. Like you're even having people come up to you and say, "Hey, I want to host for this because it's helped me in my life as a student." So I think that's a huge metric. Like that's helping retention or student persistence, I would say. And then another element about data tracking that you talked about, I think is really important. Like I have a hard time speaking to metrics on the podcast too, because it's usually a stealth channel, right? You can't always attribute to it. But the way I see podcasting and organic channels as a whole, like if you have one, there's a lot more that are not being traced because the whole goal of these platforms now and where they're moving is to not be traceable because they want to protect user rights. And so I liked your example that if you have a one, it means a lot because it typically means there's a lot more there. People aren't just coming to leave you a direct review that, the attribution was from this or that. So
That's a
I
great point, and that helps me actually in my job because I need to make a better point of that when I'm talking about it. I kind of give that excuse of this is anecdotal, like we all do,
yeah.
but what I should also include at the very least is
Hmm.
we've heard this from 4 people in the last two
Right.
weeks. There's more that
Yeah.
just don't happen to be passing by the marketing office.
Absolutely. And like statistically speaking, I think over half people now decline tracking from their device now because they have iPhones. And that's what we see on our website. So like even if you were to just double that number, that would be 8. Plus you're also not attributing for podcasts not being multi-channel. So like you can probably multiply that number a few more times. So yeah, it's great. Anyways, I know I could go on forever. I do want to switch gears to our other topic today, which is, talking about higher ed leadership. So I really liked your take on the perfect fit for a leader is and how it's not usually what everyone makes it seem to be. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I would just say that that is just it's incorrect to I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's no perfect fit for leadership, and I think I can say that because I was the last person to think that I could do this, and I don't mind sharing personally because it's just a huge part of who I am. I'm a father of triplet boys who just turned 11. We're going to Disney World next week, most importantly, but they were born at 25 weeks. We spent a lot of time in the hospital, and one of my sons is functionally nonverbal autistic. And so what changed for me 11 years ago, or then maybe after his diagnosis, is that I need to take care of him after I'm dead. Again, for lack of sugarcoating it. And so I loved being a web content specialist at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. I loved it. I would do work in the off time because I just loved it. I have an absolute responsibility to make sure that he's taken care of. And I need to move up and just again, bluntly, need to make more money and need to have more money available for him to take care of his needs after I'm dead. Sorry to keep emphasizing that. So without giving it all of the thought and insecurity attachment that I otherwise would have as the basket case that I usually am, I just went for it. And I applied for a web manager position at a major university and ended up getting that at the University of Cincinnati. And then within several months there, I just got completely lucky. 3 people left unexpectedly, retired, moved with someone else to a different job. And I got offered the interim marketing director for a major university in a major metropolitan area. I didn't know if I was ready for it. I didn't know if I could do it. And I probably thought for a minute about just saying, no, I have too much on my plate. I have appointments for kids. I'm the person that's going to come in and do my job and go home because that's what I have to do. And I took it, and I just really did think, why not? If I fail at it, I would imagine they'll put me right back in my web manager position, but it's worth the chance either way. And what I found out is that I'm actually made for it in my own unique way. I am I am an overthinker. I am insecure. I have imposter syndrome. I never think I'm the most important or smartest person in the room. And if you are honest with yourself about that and honest with others about that in whatever way is possible, I'm also saying that with, having several privileges that allow me to easily do that without other concerns. It has worked. That personality has worked within a leadership role. It hasn't been perfect, but it's as good as anyone's. I would say. And I always just I just spoke recently at a conference about this very subject, that the bottom line is that nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody. Everybody is doing a job for the first time in some respects, whether it's the first time at a different institution or a new job. Someone's been a CMO and now they're a CCO, or, whatever it may be. Nobody knows for sure, but when you're in college and you're going out into the workforce and you're starting out, you see those people in leadership positions and you think, what's it like to know everything and to be able to do everything and to be in charge of everything and be so confident? They're not. They're insecure. They make mistakes. They handle them well. That's, I think, would be a big lesson to learn. And so my call that I really want to just get out to people is that we need good people in leadership roles in higher education. And I almost go overboard perhaps with my emphasis on that in the rush to make that happen. Because if it's not someone who is a little uncertain of themselves, at least, and self-aware, it's going to be a jerk. It's going to be a jerk who's confident without the background to back it up necessarily. And maybe they do. Maybe they do have the background and they're experts. But nobody wants that jerk as their boss, and they're not going to lead higher education in a good direction. We need those middle people, for lack of a better phrase off the top of my head, seriously considering when they see an opening for a director, go for it. Go for it right now. And just see how it goes. Get some experience interviewing. I think you'll be surprised. The higher you go, and again, for lack of a better term, the higher you go in the work world, there are fewer people. So when you're starting out, you always hear those things like, we posted this job for a web specialist. We got 550 applications because 550 people were well qualified for that job. The higher you go, the lesser that number gets. So if you throw your hat in the ring on a job, you have a much better chance of at least being contacted and having an experience and starting to learn about the process. And who knows, maybe getting it, maybe going for it. And I think that the trust that people can have in being able to fall back on what they were doing before, of course it's a risk. Of course you might be uprooting your family and all of that. Everybody has many variables that I can't answer, can't address, but you can do it. I just want to say that as emphatically as possible. And I really want people to try.
No, I really appreciate that piece of advice. And in your comment about moving higher ed forward, right? Like the more people who apply to manager positions, the bigger the talent pool, meanings the managers are also going to be better just by trade. That's how sports work, right? Usually the sports with the most people trying it end up becoming like the Olympics are going on right now. So like typically the countries with the best Olympic athletes are going to be the ones with the most people trying that sport or playing that sport. And so if people are applying to more manager positions, whether you don't fit the typical personality trait that you think is a leader, like you're going to better the industry because by just pure nature of more people applying to a manager position, it's going to be more competitive, which is a good thing because it drives that manager to be the best person. And like you said, it doesn't always have to be the super extroverted person or the person who can write well. Maybe they're poor at writing, you're poor at writing, but you're really good with data and you're really good with emotional empathy. That works for certain teams. And so I think this piece of advice is really big because I feel like in higher ed, like the movement upwards is like, is in a word like stereotypical. I don't know. I don't know the right word, but I think you made a really good point here. So I thought we'd cover it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I need to tack on a couple more there because you just made so many good points. One is that there isn't a single leader, especially in the higher ed enrollment Marcom world, who can do everything. Ethan Braden, maybe. Okay. Besides Ethan Braden, nobody can do everything. And Jamie Hunt. Other than them, we're all in the same boat. There's things you can't do. I can't do Illustrator. I can mess around with Photoshop, but so would I exclude myself from a job search because it says preferred Creative Cloud expertise? No, you absolutely should not. And that just goes on and on to everything within the job. I think there are so many who just count themselves out because they look at that description and go, well, I don't have that. I don't have that master's. I don't have. These organizations need to hire the best person. And
Right.
I think if there's one thing that we can all agree on is that they're going to hire the best person because it's absolutely critical right now. They can't make the wrong decision, and you need to be a choice in that. And one last thing that I'll say about it, and it's just the way that I think about it. I personally say I will not be out presented at an interview. If there's a presentation component to an interview, I will not be out presented. I'm going to come in with something like yelling at people about a podcast that I don't think they're promoting enough. You're going to remember me, and I'm going to have something that is just different, that is going to be my high point. If I lose because someone else has worked there for 20 years and has established a great history of work, I completely accept that. And that's just, you can't do anything about that. Like, ours is in the trying, the rest is none of our business. Just try it, and start going for opportunities like that.
All right, man, I really enjoyed this conversation. And that's just some marketing 101, right? With messaging or any marketing is make it remarkable and memorable. And that's your first hook. Well, this has been great, Nate. I'm wondering where our listeners could follow up with you to learn all the great things you're doing at Miami University.
Yeah, thanks. I'm on LinkedIn, just at Nate Jorgensen. It's usually pretty easily found. MiamiOH.edu is our website where you can see what's happening. Our social team is great. So I really encourage people to check out our social team. They've grown our TikTok to like University of Texas levels as a quote unquote mid major. So interesting stuff going on here, building a centralized team, going through all those struggles. And I would just be more than happy to talk to anyone about ideas or insecurities they're having in their career. It's just a real passion point of mine.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much, Nate, for joining. And thanks for our listeners for tuning in.